The city was winding down when Kendra Ellis merged onto the outer beltway, the soft hum of her SUV calming after a long day at headquarters. Her sharp black blazer rested neatly on the passenger seat, and her briefcase sat behind her, filled with files on officer misconduct. As the director of internal affairs for the state police department, Kendra had spent the day buried in reports, disciplinary hearings, and policy reviews. She'd seen patterns before. Officers who abused their power, who pushed boundaries with impunity, who saw black faces as threats first and humans second. But tonight, she wasn't reading a report, she was about to become one. A flash of red and blue lights exploded behind her. She glanced at her speed. Perfectly legal. No broken taillight. No illegal lane change. Still, she pulled over calmly, hands on the wheel, windows down. Her heart didn't race, not yet. She had seen how these encounters could unfold, but part of her still hoped this one would be different. A white officer strode up to her window, jaw tight, eyes already suspicious. License and registration, he barked, flashlight beaming into her face as if trying to blind her. Kendra handed over her documents without hesitation. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" He scoffed. "There's been suspicious activity in this neighborhood. Late model SUVs like yours have been involved. Step out of the vehicle." "SUVs like mine?" she asked, voice steady. "Sir, I'm just heading home from," I said, "step out." Now, he snapped, reaching for his cuffs. Kendra slowly opened the door, exiting with calm control. She knew this game, knew exactly what it looked like when someone tried to provoke fear to gain power. But she wasn't afraid, not because of her badge, because of her conviction. As she stood on the shoulder of the road, the officer circled her car like a vulture. He had no idea who she was. No idea that the woman he was trying to intimidate oversaw the very department designed to hold him accountable. And as his flashlight danced across her vehicle, Kendra quietly made a decision. She was going to let him walk straight into the lesson of his career. Officer Brent Maddox had been on the force for 8 years and considered himself a man who knew how to control a situation. That night, when he spotted a black woman driving a high-end SUV through a quiet neighborhood just past sunset, his assumptions kicked in. He didn't recognize her, didn't care to. In his mind, she didn't belong there. Not in that car, not on that street, not dressed that well, without a purpose he deemed legitimate. And so he did what he often did. He acted on instinct, not law. Now, standing with his hand hovering near his belt, he ordered her to place her hands on the hood. "Keep your feet spread. You got anything sharp on you?" Kendra complied without a word. Her calmness only irritated him. She wasn't shaking, wasn't pleading. She was watching, observing, and that unnerved him. Brent patted her down with more force than necessary, ignoring her clear and respectful request for a female officer. "Got something to hide?" he asked, trying to provoke her. "Where are you coming from? Whose car is this really?" "It's registered in my name," she answered simply. "Check the registration." He didn't. He didn't care to. Instead, he paced in front of her like a schoolyard bully with a badge, scanning the vehicle from front to back. "You fit the description," he muttered again, a phrase so hollow it barely meant anything anymore. Kendra didn't move. "Description of what?" "Don't get smart. It won't end well for you," he threatened, gesturing toward his radio. Cars were starting to slow down. A couple of bystanders recorded from a distance, sensing something wasn't right. Brent glanced around, adjusting his posture to seem more professional, but his tone remained sharp. "I'll need to search the vehicle. You might want to cooperate before this escalates." And that's when Kendra had enough. She'd given him time, given him every chance to do things by the book. But he was determined to misuse his power. She lifted her head, eyes steady and voice like steel. "If you take one step toward my car, Officer Maddox, you're going to make the worst mistake of your career." He paused, confused. "Excuse me?" She reached slowly into her purse, calm and controlled. "Let me show you who I am." Kendra's hand moved with slow precision as she reached into her leather purse, not out of fear, but out of discipline. She knew what a sudden movement could be twisted into. Her fingers wrapped around the cold metal, and as she pulled it out, the glint of her internal affairs badge caught the last rays of sunset. She held it up, steady, letting it speak before she did. Brent Maddox's eyes flickered from her face to the badge, then back again, and his jaw tightened. For the first time that evening, he looked unsure. "Your internal affairs?" he asked, voice low, almost as if he was trying to convince himself it wasn't real. Kendra's expression didn't waver. "Senior Agent Kendra Moore, Internal Affairs Division. Badge number 1145C. You're being recorded, and this encounter is now part of an active investigation. Would you like to keep escalating, Officer Maddox?" The color drained from his face. He stepped back involuntarily, stumbling over his words. I didn't know who you were." "That's exactly the problem," she replied, voice razor-sharp. "You didn't care who I was. You saw a black woman in a nice car, and that was all you needed to justify this abuse of power. Do you treat every citizen like this? Or just the ones who don't look like they belong in your version of this neighborhood?" Maddox's confidence was unraveling. He reached for his radio, then paused, unsure what to do. "Look, I just thought, you thought wrong," Kendra cut in coldly. "You ignored my license, failed to verify registration, denied my request for a female officer, and attempted an illegal search of my vehicle, all while threatening and belittling me." She lowered the badge slightly. "You know what this means. I have full authority to open an investigation. And believe me, I will." Maddox looked around. A few people were still filming. He adjusted his vest nervously. "Can we just talk about this?" "We are talking," she said, stepping toward him now, "and everything you say is on record. I suggest you start thinking very carefully." His silence said more than words ever could. The silence inside the precinct the next morning was louder than any siren. Word had already spread. Whispers trailed behind Kendra as she walked past officers, detectives, and administrators. No one dared make eye contact. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished tile, each step echoing with authority. She wasn't dressed in civilian clothes now. She wore her official internal affairs suit, with her badge clipped to her belt and a manila folder tucked under her arm labeled Maddox, Brent, Preliminary Report. This was no longer a random encounter. It was an official investigation. Captain Ramirez met her at the glass door to the Internal Review boardroom. His expression was tight. "Agent Moore," he greeted, voice low, almost regretful. "Didn't expect you'd be dropping a file so soon." Kendra didn't flinch. "Didn't expect one of your officers to treat me like a suspect in my own city. But here we are." Inside the room, Maddox was already seated. His posture was different now, slouched, defensive. Gone was the arrogant swagger from the night before. He looked like a rookie caught cheating on an exam. When Kendra entered, he stood automatically, but she didn't acknowledge it. She placed the file in front of the board members and began. On the evening of the 12th, Officer Brent Maddox initiated a baseless stop, failed to identify probable cause, denied lawful rights, and proceeded to threaten and intimidate a civilian, who happened to be me. She paused, eyes scanning the room. This wasn't an isolated incident. I've pulled dashcam and bodycam footage from his last 12 stops. There's a disturbing pattern. A murmur ran through the panel. Maddox tried to defend himself, stumbling through half-formed justifications. She looked suspicious. "I thought the car might have been stolen." She didn't comply fast enough. Kendra's voice cut clean through his noise. "Suspicion is not cause, and not complying fast enough is not justification for intimidation. You didn't stop a suspect. You profiled a black woman." The room fell still. Captain Ramirez sighed heavily, flipping through the first few pages of the file. The evidence was damning, and this, Kendra knew, was only the beginning. A week later, the precinct lobby was packed. Reporters lingered outside, cameras ready. Internally, the department was bracing for impact. The Internal Affairs Division had wrapped up the expedited investigation, and Kendra Moore stood at the center of it all, not just as the victim, but as the one holding every receipt. Maddox had been suspended pending termination, but today, the city's chief of police would issue a formal statement. Kendra didn't care for theatrics, but she understood their purpose. Change required visibility. As she stood behind the podium, the department's seal gleaming under the harsh lights, Kendra took a breath and addressed the crowd. Last week, I was stopped harassed and threatened by an officer wearing this badge. She began, holding up her own to contrast. Not because I broke a law, not because I posed a threat, but because I was black in a luxury vehicle at night. That officer didn't recognize me, and to him, that meant I didn't belong. The room was silent except for the scribble of reporters' pens. Kendra continued, her voice clear and unwavering. But I do belong here. I've served this city longer than he has. And more importantly, no one, no matter their race, income, or background, deserves to be treated as a criminal based on appearance. Her words hit hard, not just in the room, but across city screens as the press conference was broadcast live. At that moment, it wasn't just about Maddox anymore. It was about a system being forced to look itself in the mirror. Later that day, as Kendra returned to her office, she found a handwritten note waiting for her. Thank you for standing up. You didn't just speak for yourself, you spoke for all of us. No name, no return address, just truth. Kendra sat back in her chair, eyes momentarily misty. She hadn't wanted to be a symbol, but now she realized she was not of power, but of accountability. And as long as she wore that badge, she would ensure justice didn't just speak, it acted.